Welcome to Suri Cheating Story, where we share true stories of betrayal in love. Our channel brings heartfelt, real-life experiences from those who have endured the pain of infidelity. Whether you're facing challenges in your own relationship or seeking to better understand the complexities of love and trust, Suri Cheating Story is the place for you. Subscribe now to explore the emotional depths in the path to healing with us. I opened the front door and for a moment, I just stood there, completely frozen. There she was, my wife, Rachel, standing in the driveway, wearing those tight jeans she hadn't worn in months, the kind of jeans she used to wear when she tried to impress me. But the real shocker wasn't just her outfit. It was the smug, almost arrogant grin on her face, a grin that didn't belong in any marriage. And then behind her was the man who would change everything. Leaning casually against a brand new black Escalade, as if the world owed him something, was a man I'd never seen before. He was tall, with tan skin and hair too perfect to be real. He stood there with one arm draped casually around two kids who were just old enough to understand the meaning of betrayal. And just behind them, my son, Jake, was standing in the doorway, his little hands clutching the frame with wide, confused eyes. Rachel didn't even wait for me to speak. She just tossed her long, bleach blonde hair over her shoulder and said, "Tom, meet Jason and his kids. They'll be staying here for a while. I think it's time we stop pretending." I laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was broken, sharp, hollow, the kind of laugh that comes from a place deep inside, one you never want to visit. "Pretending what exactly?" I asked, my voice barely holding together. She walked right past me, not even flinching. Jason followed her in, the kids trailing behind, dragging suitcases like they were already at home. Rachel tossed her purse on the couch like it was nothing, then casually added, "You and I, Tom, we've been done for a long time. You were just too blind to admit it." Jake, my son, he was only 12, stepped beside me, his hand trembling as it gripped my arm. "Dad, why is he here?" he asked in a voice that cracked with confusion, his eyes locked on me, searching for answers. Rachel glanced back at him, and that smug grin never left her face. "Because he's the one keeping me warm now," she said, her voice dripping with a coldness I couldn't believe. That sentence hit me like a punch to the gut. It didn't just hurt, it shattered something inside of me. I should have seen it coming. The late nights when she would come home late and smell like someone else's cologne, the sudden obsession with hitting the gym, the new underwear still with the tag on, clearly not meant for me. The way she'd glance at her phone and smirk, as if it held secrets she wanted to keep all to herself. But I was stupid. I thought we were just going through a rough patch, that maybe if I kept being the stable one, the provider, the protector, she'd come around. Turns out, I was just the fool in the background, while she had already found someone else to wrap their arms around her. "Jason's kids are nice," she added, her grin as fake as it had ever been. "Maybe they'll help Jake stop being so soft." That was it. That was the moment I knew I'd reached my breaking point. But before I could even speak, before I could even take a breath, Jake stepped forward. My 12-year-old son, whose eyes mirrored mine, but in that moment he was stronger than I had ever been. He pointed straight at Rachel and said, loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear, "You're not my mom anymore." Rachel blinked, completely taken off guard for the first time since stepping out of that Escalade. "I saw your messages," Jake continued, his voice shaking but gaining strength. "You told Jason you wanted to get rid of me because I remind you of Dad. You said I'm a roadblock." Jason shifted uncomfortably, his face flushing as Rachel's expression went from pale to red and then twisted into something venomous. "You little brat," she spat. "He had every right," I said, stepping forward, my voice steady but cold. "While you were playing house with some discount version of Ken, he was watching everything fall apart, and he was wondering why you didn't love us anymore." Rachel stared at me like I was just a bug under her heel. "Oh, please," she said, rolling her eyes. "Don't make this dramatic. You were boring, Tom. Predictable. I needed a man who could make me feel something again." "Feel something?" I said, my gaze fixed on the man who had yet to say a word. "You mean this clown?" Jason finally spoke, his voice smooth, practiced, like he had rehearsed it in front of a mirror. "Look, man, it's not personal. Rachel deserves to be happy." I almost laughed again, but my fists were clenched too tightly. I hope she makes you as happy as she made me, I said coldly, because eventually she'll turn on you too. She always does. And when she does, I'll be there. Laughing, Rachel rolled her eyes and walked toward the kitchen. Whatever, you'll hear from my lawyer. I'm done talking. But she wasn't done. Not even close. Neither was I. I had one more move to make. Something she never saw coming. And it all started with a file I'd hidden in the bedroom drawer. A file containing every secret she thought she'd buried. I walked down the hallway to our bedroom. No, it was my bedroom now. I opened the top drawer of the nightstand, underneath a stack of old birthday cards and tangled charger cables. There it was, the manila folder I'd been adding to for the last 3 months. I never wanted to believe I'd use it. I wanted to be wrong, but I wasn't. Screenshots, bank statements, a hotel receipt from a weekend I had spent in Michigan visiting my sick mother. Turns out Rachel had been at the Hilton with Jason. There were even a couple of printed Instagram DMs that Jason had sent to one of Rachel's friends, bragging about stealing her from her loser husband. I had proof. All of it. I walked back out into the living room, holding the folder in my hand. Jason was lounging on my couch like he paid the mortgage, flipping through channels like he owned the place. His kids had raided Jake's snacks in the kitchen, acting like they belonged. Jake sat stiffly at the edge of the stairs, still in shock, still silent, but I could see it. Fire was building in him, and this time, he wasn't going to let it go. As Emily glanced at the folder in my hands, her eyes narrowed, and she rolled her eyes dramatically. "What, you printing memes now?" she mocked. "Something like that," I replied, my voice steady, though the anger was still boiling inside me. She snatched the folder out of my hands, flipped it open, and within seconds, the smirk on her face vanished. "You've been spying on me," she barked. "No," I replied calmly. "I was collecting evidence." "There's a difference. And now I have enough to make sure you don't walk away with a single thing, except for your cheap boyfriend and his snack thief kids." Emily threw the folder down on the table, and the papers scattered across the surface. Jason stood up, clearly trying to calm things down. "Hey, look." "Man," he said, attempting to sound collected. "Maybe we should take this somewhere else." "No," I snapped, my voice growing cold and firm. "You walked into my home. You brought your mess into my family. You made this public, so let's keep it public." Emily's voice turned venomous again. "You don't have a clue what I've been through. You were never there for me emotionally. I was dead inside, and you just sat there, fixing things around the house, being a good little Boy Scout, while I rotted inside." "You didn't rot," I shot back. "You wandered off. There's a difference." Then Jason, of all people, tried to put a hand on my shoulder. "You need to calm down, bro," he said. The way he said bro lit a fuse inside me that I didn't even know existed. I slapped his hand off and stepped into his space. "Say that again. See how calm I stay." Jason backed off, visibly intimidated. Emily, now flustered, went for the only weapon she had left. "You think a judge will side with you when you're threatening people in front of your kid? You're not making a good case for yourself." "I'm not threatening," I said calmly, my voice ice cold. "I'm done. That's different." And right there, in the middle of this disaster, Noah spoke again. "Can I stay with you, Dad?" His voice was small, real, full of emotion. Emily spun around to him. "What? No, you're not picking sides." "I already did," Noah said, his voice quiet but firm. "The moment you brought them in here, like we didn't matter." Jason's kids, sensing the shift in the air, looked unsure. One of them, probably around 9, whispered something to his sibling. He bent down, nodding to him, unsure of what to make of the tension. But Emily, she crossed a line that no court document could ever erase. She grabbed Noah by the arm. "You're confused. I'm your mother. You don't talk to me like that." I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just stepped forward and said, "Take your hands off my son." She froze. I had never used that tone with her before. It was cold, final, and the command was clear. She let go of him, her face a mixture of shock and frustration. Jason exhaled, like he just realized the mess he had walked into. "Maybe we should go," he muttered, his voice low. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you walked into another man's house with your toy and a welcome mat," I snapped, my anger now completely out in the open. Emily grabbed her bag. "This isn't over," she said, her voice shaking, but her resolve still strong. "I know," I said. "It's just starting." As they walked out, Jason's younger kid looked back at Noah and gave a tiny wave. Noah didn't return it. He just watched them drive off, his eyes focused, as though he was burning the memory into his brain forever. I closed the door and locked it behind me. Then I turned and looked at Noah. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "You didn't deserve this." He hugged me tightly, like he knew that I was all he had now. And as I stood there holding him, I realized something. I wasn't the one who had lost everything. She was, and she didn't even know it yet. The next morning was quiet. Not peaceful, just the kind of quiet that wraps around your neck and doesn't let go. The kind that follows a storm when everything's been thrown around and you're standing in the wreckage, trying to pretend it's still a home. Noah didn't go to school. I didn't make him. Instead, we sat at the kitchen table, sipping cocoa like two survivors of the same shipwreck. He didn't ask about Emily. Neither did I. But I knew the questions were eating him alive, just like mine were. Around noon, my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. I opened it, and it read, "Your behavior last night was abusive. You're unstable. I've already contacted a lawyer. I'll be picking up my things with police present. Do not contact me again." I read it twice, then showed it to Noah. He blinked at it, then whispered, "She really said you were abusive?" "Yeah," I said, shaking my head. "After everything she pulled? Liar." "That's what she is," Noah muttered under his breath. A liar, that word stuck with me. Simple, accurate. She lied like she breathed, constantly, naturally, without remorse. But I wasn't going to sit around and let her twist the story into some victim act. She could play the role for her new boyfriend, for the court, for her gossip circle of friends. But I had the truth. I had documents, timestamps, messages. I had Noah, and that was enough. 2 days later, she showed up with 2 cops. No warning, just a knock on the door, like she hadn't shattered our lives and expected me to open up like a good little doormat. She stood there wearing oversized sunglasses, a fake frown plastered on her face, clutching a tote bag like it was her dignity. One of the officers asked, "Are you Tom Williams?" I nodded. "Ma'am would like to retrieve personal items. Can you allow us entry for a few minutes to supervise the process?" I looked at Emily. "You need bodyguards now?" She smiled. "I'm protecting myself. You should have done that before climbing into Jason's car." The officer stepped between us. "Let's keep it respectful." I stepped back. "By all means, let the lady of the hour reclaim her thongs and lies." She walked in like she still owned the place, went straight upstairs, and didn't even glance at the family photos on the wall. That hurt more than I expected. I thought maybe there would be a flicker of regret in her eyes. Something. But she'd already checked out. While she was upstairs, I went to the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. One of the cops lingered near the stairs, looking awkward. Then I heard Emily muttering loudly enough to carry down, "Oh, this place smells like failure. How did I live here this long?" I took a breath, held it, and let it burn. She came downstairs with 2 bags stuffed with clothes, cosmetics, and something that looked suspiciously like one of my watches. I pointed. "That's mine." "Please," she snorted. "You never wore it." "I will now," I said. Coldly, I looked at her, not saying a word. "Ma'am, if that item was purchased by him, you'll need to leave it." The officer's voice was firm, and Emily huffed, pulling the watch off her wrist and tossing it onto the couch like it was contaminated. She turned to me, her eyes narrow. "Jason's already planning to propose," she said casually. I stared at her, silent, but inside it felt like my heart was being torn apart all over again. "Just thought you should know so you can start moving on," she added, her tone as sharp as ever. I smiled, but it was cold. "I already have." Her eyes blinked, and that hit her just a little harder than she expected. And then, as if the universe had a sense of humor, Noah came downstairs, holding something in his hand. It was the framed photo of the 3 of us from his 5th birthday. He had frosting on his nose, Emily kissing his cheek, and me holding them both, smiling. He handed it to her. She looked confused. "What's this?" or she asked, as if she had no idea what was going on. Noah, without missing a beat, said, "Keep it, so you remember what you threw away." Then he turned around and walked outside. One of the officers coughed and said, "That's everything, ma'am. We're done here." Emily didn't say another word. She just followed the officers out, clutching that photo like it was the only thing that still mattered to her. I watched from the doorway as they disappeared down the driveway, And for the first time since all this started, I didn't feel broken. I felt something else. Clarity. The mask was off, the lies were exposed, and what remained wasn't sadness, it was power, because I wasn't the one hiding. Soon enough, the whole truth would be known. I still had one more move left. This time, I wasn't holding back. The day after she took her things, I filed for divorce. Clean, direct, with the full folder of evidence handed to my lawyer like a loaded gun. He flipped through it, raising his eyebrows a few times and finally said, "You've got enough here to bury her in court." "Good," I said coldly. "Let her dig." I didn't tell Emily. I let the papers do the talking. A knock at her new boyfriend's door served while she was inside playing house with Jason and his two boys. I imagined she tried to smile through it, maybe even called it just paperwork in front of them, but the timing wasn't accidental. I wanted Jason to see what kind of woman he had brought into his life. The kind who turns her kid into a pawn and her husband into a backup plan. The kind who lies so much she starts believing her own rewritten memories. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to it. It was Jason. He didn't say much, just a shaky, quiet, "Hey man, I think we should talk. Call me back when you can." I didn't let him stew. Instead, I took Noah fishing. We drove out to the lake just outside of town. No cell service, no noise, just the slap of water against the shore and the occasional bird overhead. He didn't say much for the first hour, but while tying on a lure, he looked up and asked, "Do you think she ever loved us?" I didn't lie. "I think she loved the version of us that was convenient for her." He nodded. "I don't miss her." I didn't miss Emily either, not anymore. But the ghost of who she used to be, the woman who used to dance in the kitchen while pancakes burned, the girl who cried when we brought Noah home, that version of her died somewhere between Jason's abs and her sudden distaste for family dinners. When we got home, there were flowers on the porch. A cheap bouquet from the supermarket, still in the plastic wrap, no note, just silence and desperation. I tossed them in the trash. Later that night, my lawyer emailed me a recording. A private investigator I hired had found something crucial. A dinner, Jason and a woman who wasn't Emily. Same restaurant Emily used to love. Same smug attitude. The waitress confirmed it. He'd been coming in with the new one for a month, overlapping timelines. Karma, I guess. Works fast, but I didn't tell Emily, not yet. Instead, I sent her one message. "Your fairy tale is cracking." "I'd stay close to home this week," she replied 10 minutes later. "What the hell are you talking about?" I left it on red. 2 nights later, I got a knock at the door. Late. Around 11 p.m., Noah was already asleep. I opened the door and there she was, no Jason. No makeup. Hoodie, leggings, hair in a messy bun, but not the cute kind. The unraveling kind. "Mark," she started, trying to sound calm. "Can we talk?" I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "No," I said, my voice cold. She flinched. "It's important," she said. "What, did Jason dump you already?" I asked, my voice sharp. Her lip twitched at that, and I knew it hit harder than she expected. "I know you sent those papers," she said, her voice shaky. "I got them, but maybe we rushed into this." I laughed in her face. "You rushed. I watched." She took a breath, trying to collect herself. "He's not what I thought." "Shocker," I said. "I made mistakes, big ones. I see that now." "You made a choice over and over again," I said quietly. She grew quiet. "I don't want Noah to hate me." "Then you shouldn't have brought a stranger and his kids into his home like a circus act." "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered, her voice low. "That's the problem," I said. "You never think past the moment. And then, this part still burns." She put her hand on my arm and said, "Maybe we could fix this for Noah." For a second, I just stared at her. Really stared. And then, without saying a word, I stepped back. Back I already did. I fixed everything the moment you left. I turned, opened the door, and shut it in her face. She didn't knock again, but I knew it wasn't the end. No, she wasn't done yet, and neither was I. 3 days passed without a word. No flowers, no calls, no fake apologies. Then Friday came. I pulled into my driveway after work and saw her car already parked there. The front wheels turned like she meant to stay. She was standing in the front yard, pacing, arms crossed, dressed to kill, tight black dress, heels too high for grass, lipstick red enough to bleed. She looked more like she was heading to a nightclub than trying to repair a family. Noah was still at school. I had maybe 20 minutes before he got dropped off. I stepped out of the car, not saying a word. She saw me and lit up with a practiced smile. "Mark, you look good." I walked past her toward the front door. "What do you want, Emily?" She followed me up the steps like a stray dog wearing designer clothes. "I talked to Jason," she said casually, like we were friends again. "We decided things aren't working out. Too different. The boys didn't get along." "Tragic," I said, unlocking the door. She didn't wait to be invited in, just slipped past me like the last few weeks hadn't happened. She sat on the couch like she belonged. "I've been thinking," she started, smoothing her dress. "Maybe I made a mistake." "You did make a mistake," I said. "A series of them, actually." "I wasn't myself," she said, giving me that weak, wide-eyed look that used to work when she crashed my car or maxed out the credit card. "You know how lost I was. I needed attention. I needed to feel seen." I leaned against the wall, arms folded. "So you cheated, lied, humiliated me, brought a stranger and his kids into our home to replace us." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "And then you accused me of abuse to cover your guilt. Filed first with a lawyer to make me look unstable. Told our son he reminded you too much of me. Need me to keep going?" Her smile cracked. "I just want another chance," she said, her voice trembling now. "Not for me. For Noah. He deserves a full family." I stared at her for a long time. Then I told her the truth. "I filed for full custody. You'll get visitation, supervised until Noah says otherwise." She stood up, fury flashing across her face. "You can't do that." "I already did." "You want to fight it?" I said, my voice cold. "Bring your folder. I'll bring mine." She narrowed her eyes. "You think this makes you the better parent?" "No," I said, taking a step closer. "I think sticking around through every lie, every breakdown, every empty stare, every time you locked the bedroom door because you weren't in the mood for months, I think that makes me the better parent." "You were cold," I added, voice low. "You were gone." We both stood there breathing heavy, like two boxers in the 10th round, with nothing left to give but hate. Then I heard the bus. "Noah!" I stepped onto the porch as he climbed off, backpack half-zipped, hair messy from the wind. When he saw her, he stopped walking. "Mom!" His voice was a mix of confusion and anger. She smiled. "Hey, baby." He didn't smile back. "Why are you here?" he asked. "I came to talk to your dad," she said sweetly. "Just grown-up stuff." He looked at me. I gave him a slight nod. He walked up the steps and stood beside me. "Are you staying?" he asked her. "I was hoping to," she said, a hint of desperation creeping into her voice. "No," he said firmly. "You shouldn't." Her face broke, just for a second. The fake mask dropped, and I saw it. Fear, regret, a flash of something too late to matter. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll go." She walked back to her car, heels sinking into the lawn. Before she opened the door, she turned back and said, "He'll regret this one day. He'll ask why I left." Noah answered before I could. "Number, I'll remember why." Then he turned around and walked inside. I followed, closing the door behind me. And for the first time in weeks, it felt like my house again. Not perfect, not whole, but honest. And I'd take that over her version of love any day. The following week was quiet, but not in a comforting way. It was the kind of silence you know won't last, the kind that builds like pressure under the skin. On Wednesday evening, just as I was setting plates down for dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup, Noah's favorite, my phone rang. Unknown number again. I was going to ignore it, but something in my gut told me to pick up. "Mark Taylor," the voice asked. "Yes." "This is Officer Daniels with the County Sheriff's Department. We received a complaint filed against you. Harassment, possible endangerment of a minor." I stood there, stunned. "What?" "The complaint comes from Miss Emily Taylor. You're listed as making verbal threats, engaging in emotionally abusive behavior, and denying access to her child." I didn't speak right away. My jaw locked tight. He continued, "We're not pressing charges at this time, but we will need a formal statement, preferably with your attorney." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. "I understand. I'll have my lawyer contact you." I hung up, my hands shaking. Noah looked up from the table. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice full of concern. I forced a smile. "Nothing. Just some paperwork I forgot about. I didn't tell him, not yet. But inside I was boiling. She wasn't done. She never would be. She couldn't leave quietly. She couldn't accept that she had shattered something beyond repair and lost the only people who ever really gave a damn. Now she was trying to paint me as the villain in her unraveling little drama. The woman who waltzed out of my life with another man was now trying to brand me as a danger to my son. I called my lawyer right after dinner. He wasn't surprised. "She's cornered," he said. "She's realizing she picked the wrong side, and now she's trying to claw back control. The good news? You've documented everything. Let her come." That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, running through every moment we had, every lie she told, and every time I brushed it off. I should have seen this version of her long ago, but I didn't want to. I wanted to believe she was better than this, that maybe she was lost, not cruel, but she was both, and the worst part? She was still Noah's mother. That Thursday she showed up at his school. She wasn't supposed to. The divorce papers made it clear. No contact without approval. But she did it anyway. She waited until he got out, cornered him in the parking lot, and tried to convince him to come stay with her for a few days. He said no. She got angry. A teacher saw it all. By the time I got there, the principal had already called me and escorted Noah to the office. Emily was gone. Security footage caught enough for me to file a violation. She texted me that night, "You're turning my son against me. You'll regret this. He will too." I didn't respond. Instead, I showed it to my lawyer. That weekend, I sat with Noah on the couch and finally told him everything. Not the dirty details, he was too young for that, but the truth. "Your mom is going through something. She's made choices I can't protect you from anymore. But I will always make sure you're safe, no matter what she tries." He nodded. "I know, Dad. I see it." Then he said something I'll never forget. "I used to wish she'd come back. Now I hope she doesn't." I didn't know what to say. Part of me ached for him, but another part of me felt relief. He wasn't blind anymore. Neither of us were. That Sunday, a letter arrived, her official response through her attorney. She wanted joint custody, equal time, week on, week off. It was laughable, but I didn't laugh because I knew this wasn't about being a mother. It was about control. It was about punishing me for not letting her walk away clean. She thought I'd bend. She thought I'd crack. But she forgot something important. I don't lose to liars anymore. Not even the ones I once loved. Court day. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, adjusting a tie I hadn't worn since my father's funeral. I didn't wear it for Emily. I wore it for Noah. To show him that some things like dignity are worth putting back on when everything else falls apart. He wasn't with me, of course. I didn't want him anywhere near the circus. He was with my sister, probably playing Xbox, hopefully not thinking too much about what his parents were about to drag through the mud in front of a judge. My lawyer met me at the courthouse. He was calm, controlled, the kind of man who didn't blink even when the world was on fire. I admired that. "She'll probably play the victim," he said. "Tears, regret, all that. Let her stick to the truth. Let the paperwork talk." Emily arrived 10 minutes later in a white blouse, like she was attending communion, not combat, hair tied neatly, minimal makeup, but still trying to play the picture of the grieving, discarded wife. Jason wasn't with her. Not anymore. I figured that implosion happened quietly after his little side affair got exposed. Good. Let her feel what betrayal tastes like. The hearing started calm enough. Introductions, backgrounds. Then her lawyer stood up and painted a picture so distorted I barely recognized it. "Mrs. Taylor has endured emotional neglect for years. Her attempts to salvage the marriage were dismissed. She made one mistake. Yes, but only after Mr. Taylor shut her out completely. Now she seeks to restore a relationship with her son, who has been kept from her unfairly." "Unfairly," my lawyer muttered under his breath. I clenched my fists. Then my lawyer stood up with the confidence of a man who had all the receipts. And he did. Every message, every hotel record, every video call where Noah cried after another failed meeting or unanswered call from her. The folder laid it all out. Dates, times, her words in her own handwriting. The judge looked through it silently, and when he looked up at me, I didn't see sympathy. I saw understanding. Then Emily took the stand. That's when the real theater began. Tears, big eyes. She spun a story claiming I was the one who had kept her from Noah, that I was the one who had hurt the family, that I was the villain. But the judge wasn't fooled. He let her speak her piece. But when it came time to ask her the tough questions, he didn't back down. Her story fell apart as the evidence piled up. She tried to paint me as the monster, but the truth was clear. She had broken everything and now tried to spin it into something she could control. The courtroom was tense, the air thick with the weight of what was happening. Emily's tears dried up quickly, and the mask she had worn for so long began to slip. Her shaking voice was the damn axe she used every time she needed to dodge responsibility. "I just want my family back," she whispered, voice cracking at all the right moments. "I never meant to hurt anyone, Jason. It wasn't what it looked like. I was lost, I was empty, and Mark didn't see me anymore." She looked right at me like I was supposed to nod and apologize. I didn't move. When it was my turn, I didn't cry, I didn't tremble. I told the truth. I loved her. I gave her everything. She didn't just walk out, she detonated our family. She brought another man and his children into our home, introduced them to my son as if we were replaceable. And when it didn't work out, she tried to crawl back and paint herself as the victim. I paused, then added, "But this isn't about me. This is about Noah, and all he wants is peace." That silence in the courtroom afterward was louder than any shouting match we ever had. The judge ruled 3 days later. Primary custody granted to me, visitation every other weekend, supervised until a child therapist confirms Noah's emotional readiness. Any violation? Automatic suspension of rights. Her face when she heard it, she didn't cry. She fumed. Tight jaw, eyes flicking from the judge to me, like it was all some setup, like justice had cheated on her too. Outside the courtroom, she caught up to me in the parking lot. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You humiliated me in there." "No," I said, my voice steady. "You did that to yourself. I just stopped covering for you." She leaned in close, that sickly sweet voice returning. "You'll regret this. He's still my son." I didn't flinch. "You had a son, and you lost him the minute you chose a stranger over him." She didn't answer, just turned around and walked off. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something I hadn't in months. Freedom. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the damage, but it was the first step. I picked up Noah from my sister's that evening. We drove home in silence for a while. Then he asked, "Did we win?" I smiled. "We didn't lose, and for now that was enough." The following weeks felt different, not lighter, not easier, just real. There were no more fake apologies, no more late-night texts twisting knives, no sudden appearances in our driveway with mascara running like war paint. She faded slowly but surely from our everyday life, and in her absence, something unexpected started to grow. Peace. Noah smiled more, ate more, slept better. The bags under his young eyes began to vanish, and the kid who used to flinch when the doorbell rang was now humming while brushing his teeth. That was victory. Not the custody papers. She still tried to call, once, twice, 3 times. Left voicemails that swung between pitiful and poisonous. "I miss him, Mark. You don't have to be so cruel. Then, you've poisoned him against me. You're disgusting." Then back again. "Maybe we can talk. Start over." I blocked her. Let her scream into the void where she belonged. One night, maybe 2 months after the hearing, Noah came into the living room holding an old photo album, the thick leather-bound one Emily insisted we make when he was born. I hadn't opened it since before everything broke. He sat next to me, turned a page. "Do you think she ever looks at these?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "I think she does. I think she looks at them and realizes what she lost." He nodded slowly, then pointed at a picture, me holding him in the hospital, eyes red but smiling. Emily was beside me, glowing like the world had just started. He whispered, "She used to be good." "People change," I said, "sometimes for the better, sometimes into someone you don't recognize." He looked at me. "I'm glad you didn't change." I smiled and ruffled his hair. "I did. I just didn't break." That weekend I took him hiking, just the 2 of us. No phones, no distractions, just the sound of boots on dirt and wind through the trees. He asked about the future, college, driving, maybe getting a dog. We planned all of it. We didn't mention her once. And in that silence, I found the closure I never thought I'd get. Because closure isn't always an apology. Sometimes it's a quiet morning, a breakfast together, a home without tension, a kid who finally feels safe again. She thought bringing Jason and his sons into our home would end us. She thought she'd break me, but instead she gave me something she never meant to. Clarity, a clean slate, and the chance to show my son what real love looks like. Solid, loyal, unshakable. If you find this story interesting and want to see more touching, tense, but meaningful situations, don't forget to subscribe to our channel today. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Share this story with your friends and remember to like the video so we can stay motivated to bring you more great and meaningful content. Thank you for watching and supporting us.